Well, it looks like we've got a rising number of participants. I want to thank you all for attending this program on great photography of Greystone Theatre as part of the Department of Drama's 75th anniversary alumni event. Welcome. Please be aware that we're recording this event, and also be aware that we have other drama events on the horizon, including at 2 p.m. on Saturday, a retrospective on the era from 1970 to 1995, and at 7 p.m. that same day, a retrospective on the era 1995 to the present. Also, of course, tickets for Unity, our online production about the Spanish flu epidemic in Unity, Saskatchewan in 1918, a Governor General's award-winning play. It'll be playing on the 17th, 18th, and 19th of this month at 8 p.m. on all 3 days. And please do get a ticket from our drama department website in advance. You'll be happy that you did. As we gather here today, we acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. We pay our respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. A few viewing instructions just to get us going. If you'd like to see a live written transcript of this event, please select that option from the box at the bottom of the screen. The show subtitle option will show you subtitles at the bottom of your screen. The view full transcript will show you a sidebar of the full transcript of what we're all talking about here. In addition, I should give you some instructions about the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a Q&A tab. If you click on that Q&A, a box will pop up. Please feel free to submit any questions that you have for the presenters at any point during the event, and we'll have a little time at the end for us to address audience questions. We won't be using the chat function today. Theater is an ephemeral art form, and an art form that probably would go largely unrecorded if it weren't for great photographers and reviewers, photographers like the ones you're seeing before you today. We wouldn't know too much about Peter Brook's Marat Sade had photographers not taken pictures, had reviewers not put their words in print. We wouldn't know much about John Dexter's Equus. We wouldn't know much about Henry Wolfe's production of Hamlet at Greystone Theatre, if not for the photographers that you're seeing before you today. Photography, the photography of the theater is an art form unto itself. I don't know about you all, but I love to thumb through books of theater photographs. They seem to be charged with meaning and dramatic tension in a way that your average wedding photograph isn't, although I'm not sure, maybe some wedding photographs are. But I do enjoy and have enjoyed looking at the pictures that these gentlemen have taken for us. What you're going to hear and see this evening is how the art form changed over about the past 50 years, the differences between shooting on film and digitally, the shutter stop speeds perhaps that had to be regulated with bright stage lighting, stories of favorite photos and photo shots from years gone by. We'll proceed anti-chronologically, and I'll introduce each of our panelists as they're about to speak. James Miller is a theater and film artist, originally from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, a lover of music from an early age. James became involved in musical theater in high school, playing such roles as the mysterious man in Into the Woods, Jean Valjean in Les Miserables, and Peter in Jesus Christ Superstar. After a few years of travel and work as a teacher and educational assistant, James returned to his theatrical roots and is currently a third-year design student at the University of Saskatchewan. Here, he has embraced roles both on stage and behind the scenes. Greystone Theatre credits include The Beau Stratagem, for which he did the sound design, Spirit Wrestler. He acted in that play, The Cripple of Inishmaan, which he was a wonderful Dr. McSherry. I can attest to that, having directed him. Playhouse Creatures, he was the assistant set designer on, and of course, The Secret in the Wings, for which he did the sound design. James currently lives in Saskatoon with his wife, Catherine, and his son, Kieran. He's recently been working as a student assistant in the drama department, combing through the university archives for photos that might be used during this alumni event. And I think we'll start, James, by just asking you to talk about that process a little bit. What was it like being faced with that huge archive?
Oh goodness, it's for the kid who spent more time in his grandma's basement looking through old photo albums than playing upstairs with the rest of the kids. It's kind of a dream come true. Yeah, it's been right up my alley. Certainly it's been a daunting task, but it's been one that has been very rewarding. As a theater artist, as a designer in particular, very inspiring to see so many great designs over the years, and to be able to see the history of Greystone that we really only hear about in stories here and there has been absolutely magical.
Unmute myself. Did you find anything that surprised and excited you particular? Were there favorite photographs that you
Absolutely. Should I bring them up now?
Please do, if you have
Sure.
them on ready. That's great.
All right. So yeah, the first thing that struck me going through these photos is just how incredibly, I don't know, modern to me they look. Um, they the colors are still so vibrant because these are coming right off of the film. These were never printed to paper, you know, so they haven't yellowed with age. They're still just as vibrant as the day they were shot, as far as I can tell. This first shot here is from the 1958 production of The Adding Machine. I'm a huge lover of German expressionism, and when I saw this, I just got really excited. I hadn't heard of it. I hadn't heard of it before, but reading up on it, I guess it's one of the first and most successful American examples of expressionist theater. You know, as a designer, just look at that stark lighting and the costumery and the makeup. It's just amazing to look at. Yeah, it's also been just very cool, as you said, to go through the history and see the changing sensibilities in design and other aspects of production as well. So going from German expressionism, which is very symbolic and very stark, to this production, which is more traditional in terms of set design. You know, you've got your three walls and you know, a very descriptive representation of a general store or post office, I guess it says right in the background there. Another thing, going through thousands of photos over the past 6 months, you start to notice things. So I wonder if anyone's picked up that the dresses on these women in this photo are the same dresses for sale on the wall in the post office. And here I thought I was done with those dresses, but as I was scanning through these pictures, I came across another photo 10 years later in 1969. They brought those dresses back. You can see one lady wearing that same dress. So there's a really good example of theatrical economy and adaptability. So that was kind of cool to be able to notice something like that. This next photo is from the 1960 production of The Constant Wife. I'm a huge fan of mid-century modern design. We call it mid-century modern now, but then it would have just been modern. This style has really come back in and yeah, it's kind of all the rage right now. So it's cool to see it in its time, way back in 1960. I'm also a big Neil Simon fan, and you can almost tell a Neil Simon play by his sets. They're always these quaint, urban, domestic settings. This one I thought was really well done, with the dirty kind of skylight, the nice little details of the radiator on the wall. It's all very descriptive and really tells you a lot about the inhabitants of that particular space. Also, who doesn't love the crazy fashions of the late 60s that start to become apparent in the productions? And next, going into the 70s, I expected to see more experimentation. As we know, there was experimentation of all kinds going on in the 70s. So theater was no different. It was in this time that Greystone started experimenting more with their theatrical productions, their sets, and using more of a black box style theater that we are used to using in our current space right now. So I just found this particular design very striking, and I guess I don't want to say more forward thinking, because all designs are valid, but I'm wondering if maybe one of the performers of that play could explain maybe the symbolism behind this. This is from 1977's Antigone. I'm wondering how this kind of very stark, very simplistic set design served the play. Maybe one of those performers could help me out with that.
Well, James, that was directed by Eric Schneider in the 1970s. Yeah, it's an ancient Greek play, of course, but done, transcribed by Anouilh. And it's the kind of set that's called for in the script, very stark. You need lots of space. It's got to represent several time schemes and so forth. So that space became, the desk, for example, became Creon's desk. It's where Creon and Antigone faced off. But there was also a kind of a ramp there that was meant to mimic the old Greek outdoor spaces. I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's beautiful in its simplicity, isn't it? It's I really enjoyed that one. And this last one that I'm going to talk about just kind of solves a bit of a mystery for me. I've seen pieces of this set hanging in Ian's shop, and I always wondered where they were from. So here we are, 1998, Tartuffe. Dwayne, you directed that one, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. You seem to be hitting on all of the shows I directed. But yeah, that was a modern production set in Ottawa, Ontario of Tartuffe. And instead of the king coming in for the final address or the king's messenger, it was an RCMP officer who had a glowing light on him as he gave the final address and served as the Deus Ex Machina.
Great, thank you for that. Yeah, so just going through these, it kind of shows the variations, of what's possible in theater. It almost seems you can do anything in theater. That's kind of my takeaway. So hugely inspiring for me as a designer.
Well, thank you, James. That's lovely. It's great to see or to have it proven to us yet again that Greystone Theatre can do quite a bit on a shoestring budget, which is what we've generally had all of these years. And, you know, that would include using the same dress between 1954 and 1969. So thanks a lot for that. Lovely. And I want to remind anybody listening that you can leave a question for James on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And in the meantime, we will go on and talk a little bit about Mr. David Stovey's pictures. Now, growing up in British Columbia, Dave Stovey never set out to become a photographer. After completing high school in Kelowna, he was awarded a unique scholarship for students interested in pursuing art. It was half cash for art supplies and half for tuition at a school. While he was interested in photography at the time, he didn't own an SLR camera, and he bought a Canon Rebel, which was a film camera instead. A couple of years later, he bought a complete darkroom set at a garage sale in Quebec. Eventually, he succumbed to parental pressure and studied photojournalism at SAIT in Calgary. In the mid-2000s, he moved to Saskatchewan, where he saw a great potential for commercial work and where housing was, at that time at least, inexpensive. He and his wife and family have been here for now 14 years. He has photographed visits of prime ministers, 2 Grey Cups, 2 Junos, and almost a third, except for this COVID crisis. And he has crisscrossed the province from Uranium City to Estevan in his pursuit of wonderful photographs. Dave, welcome here this evening. And maybe if you want to talk a little bit about, you are the only photographer that we'll be interviewing today who has worked exclusively out of the John Mitchell Building and mostly out of the Greystone or the Emrys Jones Theatre in the John Mitchell Building. I don't know if you want to share any stories about that, or if you have favorite photographs that you'd like to talk about. Maybe James, if you can, if you'd put up some of the photographs from James's era, which is the modern era. And Dave, if you want to talk a little bit about this, feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, I'll start off. As James is saying, black box theater, and Dwayne, you said there was a shoestring budget. And when I was first invited to come photograph, hey, do you want to come shoot some theater? And they're like, we're just a small simple black box theater with on a limited budget. Don't expect much. And I was the first few theater shows I photographed. I was like, this is amazing. The talent and the set design that was being produced I was truly blown away. Even before an actor takes the stage, you're looking around and you're like, whoa, this is not like, I don't know, this is not a simple theater. This is really well done. The attention to detail has always shown me or blown me away. That the costumes, the makeup, the set design, the lighting has just been unreal. As mentioned, I was trained as a photojournalist, and so normally when I'm working on a photojournalism story, you cameras to your eye, you forget what's happening, you make sure you think about lighting, composition, focus, and you kind of try to tell the story of what's happening. And I'm a little embarrassed to say, but more than once I was caught watching the play, not working the play. And so here I am like, oh wow, whoops, I gotta get to work, like you get kind of drawn in because the caliber of the actors, and if it's a musical, the singing, like for such a small theater company. I'll pause on this one here for a second, James. I'm blanking on the name of what this production was right now. This is one of the earlier ones that I photographed, and I still think about. Dwayne, you guys remember what this one was called? It's a Nazi wartime play, and it sent shivers down my spine. I came home and I couldn't even sleep. I had to wake my wife. I'm like, we gotta go see this. You gotta come. This is amazing. Like this is unbelievable. It's extremely powerful performances that have consistently been done there. Anyways, you can carry on. On a technical side of shooting, I have, it's interesting because when over the years I've seen LED lights being brought in more and more, and those of you who have photographed realize LED lights and digital cameras don't always get along. When you have the mixed use, it can work fine, but every now and then you get a color, sometimes reds or purples really bleed out and do funny things, or if you're highlighting an actor, it does interesting things. And so that's been one challenge over the years of photographing performances. I've really enjoyed getting up to the, Carla or somebody who's ever designed is like, okay, there's one shot we like to get halfway through. So you have to, in the dark, run up the stairs, photograph from up on the catwalk, come back down. And luckily there's obviously no audience when I'm shooting. It's just a rehearsal, but it's, it's really fun to capture the moments of these shows. I've also switched to using mirrorless cameras in the last couple of years, which has greatly helped photographing low light situations when you have face and eye tracking software that does a lot of the hard work of photographing in a low dim room, or sometimes shockingly bright room, and trying to capture everything with limited foreknowledge of what's going to happen. Of like, oh, this is going to be a dark scene, this is going to be a bright scene. You just kind of, as it goes along, I just keep shooting, which has been really fun. I've always set my camera to, if you play around with the cameras, to a tungsten balance, so I can let the lighting designers, what they envisioned to come out. If they wanted someone's face to wash across yellow, if you have it on auto white balance, it'll obviously ruin that. Or if you wanted the skin to be blue toned and down there, you have to keep that. So I just set the tungsten balance so their design, their impression, their vision will come through, much like how David and Barry talk when they had to shoot films where tungsten balanced film. I have it vastly easier by just turning a dial, but it's the same concept of trying to let the vision pull through of the set designer. And the only other thing, see if you can see it in any of these photos. I think I got rid of it in all these photos I sent in. But the exit sign has always been a pet peeve of mine that Carla and I usually laugh about beforehand and try to cover it up just for the dress rehearsal and then take it off for the actual show in case there is an actual fire emergency. But just so, because I just hate that when you're moving around and getting different angles and there's a bright exit sign over someone's head in the stills. I think that's all the things I was going to mention. Dwayne, do you have any questions?
Yeah, thanks, David. That's lovely. I mean, it's worth saying too that you were the first Greystone photographer who filmed live action shots as opposed to stopping the action and asking the actors to pose. And the reason for that is your technology, I guess, is that you had an f-stop speed that allowed you to stop action shots. That would be correct, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah. And I often shoot with prime lenses with two bodies. So even with prime lenses, I'm still switching lenses around to figure out. And so I'm trying to do live action, having to make sure I have something a little bit tight, a little bit wide, and going with the action is keeps me on my toes.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of things inside the camera after you've taken the shot to change the color balance and so forth, or in the dark?
No, like I mentioned, I try to keep the color balance locked in, so I'm not reinterpreting what the stage designer had in mind. Other than that, I will perhaps try to rescue some highlights if I mess something up, or bring in saturation or some contrast, whatever's needed, but I generally try not to do too much. I try to, you know, and just hope and pray that they're in focus and they're not too much blurry, because it's still pretty dark, and sword fights tend to get a fair bit of motion blur.
Yeah, it's not an ideal place to take a picture, I think, probably a theater with those sometimes very bright and sometimes very dim lights.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, and for all the work you've been doing late at night in the drama department, taking photos and of course taking resume shots of many of our actors. If you look around at Persephone Theatre or Shakespeare on the Saskatchewan, you'll see Dave's work on programs and poster boards all across town. Good, good. Let's carry on. So David Mandeville is next. David was born in the UK, just outside of London. Following high school, he trained as a medical photographer at St. Bartholomew's Hospital in the London Polytechnic. He moved to Saskatoon in September of 1969 to work at the U of S Division of Audiovisual Services. And over the years, he has photographed many aspects of university life, from drama productions to Husky football, royal visits, convocations, and surgical and pathological photography for the colleges of medicine and veterinary medicine. He has recorded scientific experiments for agriculture, engineering, physics, and most of the other science departments on campus. David officially retired in 2004, but he has continued teaching with the Community Arts Photography program and the Medical Arts and Humanities program for the College of Medicine. So welcome here, David, and thank you for agreeing to be part of this panel. I know you have some stories of late night photo shoots in the Hangar Building. Did you ever photograph, David, in John Mitchell, or was it all Hangar Building for you? Whoops, you're muted. We'll have to unmute you, David. There
Yeah,
you go.
is that better?
Yes, that's great.
Good. Yeah, no, I was in the Hangar Building and John Mitchell, so it was got into the switch over there.
Okay. And now, do you have some interesting stories of photo shoots that you took during that time?
Well, probably for a start, as you said, I trained as a medical photographer, so I was used to working in the hospitals, operating rooms, all that sort of thing. And then I'd been with the university a short while, and somebody said, "Oh, by the way, you've got to cover the drama department too." So that was a totally new learning experience for me as to what was expected with theatrical photography. I would love to have the equipment now, or had then, what Dave is playing with now, because everything was very basic. Barry would probably agree with this. Everything with color shots were all done on Ektachrome 160 tungsten. So we didn't even have the option of playing around afterwards with color balance and tweaking shadows and those sorts of things. We just shot what we could. The other thing, of course, using film, was you never had a chance to see what you had until at least the earliest would be the next day when the films were processed. So a lot of it was just pretty much one shot, and one shot with the color, and then one shot with the medium format Mamiya for black and white. So again, we didn't have the option of shooting all the black and whites were shot for mainly going up in the hallway in the foyer entrance, and the color shots, I don't know where they disappeared to.
there's a beautiful shot from Bent, directed by Frederick Adele on the screen. David, I just have to say you're chunking up a little bit on my screen anyway. I don't know if this is happening.
Yeah, you guys were doing that on mine. So is that my system, or?
I'm not sure. I just I'll jump in when you chunk up.
Okay.
Can you remember, David, the first show that you ever photographed at Greystone, or is it memorable at all?
I've lost you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just
to be
wondered.
honest, no, I don't remember. No, that's okay. I mean, I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. So
tell us about some of your favorite.
Barry doesn't look as if he's got an aging problem like I do, but no, I'm afraid I don't. Some of the memorable ones probably would have been Walter Mills thing, 2 casts, so that, you know, one night it would be one cast, second night they would change over. So when we were doing the photo shooting, a lot of his were done at rehearsals. We did all of our photo shoots after a production, so we didn't start till 10:30 at night. And Gene Brody, we would costume change, then we'd reshoot it, and then they'd do a costume change and then go alternating through all of the different scenes. So I ran out of film at about 2 o'clock in the morning, I think, on that one. And then everybody was stopped because I think there was some quite young children in that production. So that, and sort of going along with that, one of the things that would often happen, common to come out at 12:30 at night with freezing rain and the roads like a skating rink and frozen over the cars. And that was a thing in the ag building that was just on the surface. So there were all sorts of little trials and tribulations in the hangar building. One of which would have been a lighting condition, because, as you know, we were talking the other day with Dave, he can boost his ISO up super high. You know, and just a steady hand to hopefully get it going. And I say no way of correcting what you shot other than the black and whites doing some work in the darkroom, but color, it was the way it came was what you got on that. I know your usual final curtain, everybody would clear the house, then the cast would come back in and the director would be there with a shot list. And I know there was one time, remember the play, but Pamela, I think it was her first time directing, and I'm getting my camera ready and the stage manager came in and said, okay, so what do you want to do? And I said, what the producer wants or the director wants. So we had to call Pamela in, and I believe she came in her pajamas quite late that evening and did the shot. But I think that's about the only time that we've just interesting sort of thing. I think everybody was learning at times when you got new faculty in, it was done differently where they'd been before, and we had to work around it. I think I did 2 productions digitally, but that was with a really early digital camera. Didn't like reds. Anything that was red just blocked out completely. And a lot of the stage lighting were using red gels and those, you know, and red costumes, and just now going into digital. I mean, it's God, that's 30 years ago now, so things have obviously changed quite a lot. But it was fun experience. She was, you know, just a young kid at that time. And so we were standing there waiting for the cast to come out, and they came out, and she looked at me and she said, oh, Dad, they're real people. Scene with the actors on stage, and she just didn't relate to them actually being real people that were just goofing around like students do after their final curve.
David, I'm gonna stop you there and just ask you, maybe in order to avoid the chunking, we might turn off your video.
Interesting to go along. And is there any, say, I didn't pick up any, because I don't have any pictures on file, because they all went to you guys. But I say different directors. But again, getting of Henry Wolfe one time in our studio for, I think it was a Master Teachers Award. And I think, you know, we shot off about time really, but every picture that I took of Henry was slightly different, and we got a different Henry each time. But he was very interesting to work with as a director on stage. One of the nice things I found about working with drama students or actors in general, that they're like politicians. They can without having to get their attention, and they also know the lighting, so that if somebody is in a dim to record them doing it.
Dave, I might stop you there if that's okay.
That's fine.
We're at about the 10-minute mark, and also there is a chunking issue. If this continues, David, you might want to just stop the video. Keep your microphone on, but stop the video. It might cure that problem of chunking up. But let's go on. Thank you for that, David. Lovely to hear. Dr. F. Barry Brown is here with us, Professor Emeritus and former head of the Departments of Curriculum Studies and Educational Communications and Technology in the College of Education here at the University of Saskatchewan. It's our good fortune that he has been working on campus since the late 1960s, when he began photographing many Greystone Theatre productions of that era. Barry, welcome here. I asked you this earlier about how the beekeeping was going. I know that's your retirement project. What's harder, keeping bees or taking photographs of Greystone Theatre? Whoops, you're muted, Barry. There you are. Oh. Again, you're muted somehow.
Unmute. Okay, how's that? Am I
That's
coming?
better. Yeah.
There is a bit of a bandwidth problem creeping in here. The bees are good. One of the things that I might mention, Dwayne, too, is that this was 50 years ago when I was shooting pictures in the hangar of the productions. That was a very molding experience as a young fellow in the College of Engineering, taking a class in drama from Walter Mills and Walter, and of course Emrys. I'd started in photography when I was in the Air Force, but I got out of the Air Force because the Avro Arrow was shot down. I was in that intake to fly that sucker. So we ended up as engineers taking some outside classes, like an English class and a drama class and so on. And I fell into the drama thing because I was sort of in between engineering and physics and that sort of thing. And the stage production class and the the set construction, as a farm boy, I really got in. I could pound nails like crazy. So I got doing things with Walter Mills. And then, of course, I had a camera and we started shooting pictures. But as David said, he had Anscochrome 160. I started out with Kodachrome 25. Then, of course, Kodachrome came up with 64. And then Anscochrome came up with 160 ASA, American Standards Association numbers. New people using digital don't recognize that. But we did have a lot of problems shooting. They were all incandescent lights, and the incandescent lights were really great, except the dimmers controlled them, and you could lose color temperature just instantly. So if you're shooting with low ISO, low shutter speeds, and somebody's up in the control diddling the controls. So you actually, by the time you got used to shooting pictures at the Greystone, you felt pretty powerful because you could stop them doing things, and the director would stop them and make them do pretty well what you wanted. So I found that quite enjoyable. Yeah, there were some great productions, and it was 50 years ago, so I don't remember a lot of the names. I remember Blithe Spirit because it seems to me Walter Mills was directing, oh yes, and Glennis Dudridge in the window there. Wonderful. And Glennis Dudridge right here too. Oh no, that's Blithe Spirit itself. This is Glennis Dudridge. Yeah, very, very fun productions. With Blithe Spirit, I believe that Walter Mills may have been directing it, and I was the stage manager. And I came in to the rehearsal, and Walter had Blithe Spirit down on her knees in her beautiful pink dress, scrubbing up some red paint that they'd spilled earlier when they were touching up the set. And I got quite furious, and I didn't realize I could throw Walter Mills off the stage as stage manager, which I did. He still passed me though with the stagecraft class. Is there another picture? Oh yes, Death of a Salesman. That was a good production. And as you can see, as the other photographers can see, with the dimmer on the incandescent lights, you got even worse problems with the lighting than with LEDs and the odd incandescent thrown in. So we did spend a lot of time trying to balance the lights so that, and I had to use a tripod all the time. Nowadays, when you go up to ISO 25,000, you can do it without a tripod, but we had to use a tripod most of the time, and we had to freeze people so that we would get these decent sharpness. So it turned out to be a good training experience working with photography with the Greystone, and that really provided the foundation for me to become the first chief television engineer at the university and set up audiovisual services. And that was just training that you can't get anywhere else. So I heartily support young people going into drama and getting to know the actors and the actresses. And as somebody mentioned, I think Dave said that he shoots a lot of production pictures for whoever's in the play. And that was one of the things I really enjoyed, was particularly with the actresses and the starlets, to photograph them. Ernest Jones was really big on seeing every proof that you shot, and then he would choose particular pictures from the ones that you would bring into his office. And I'm not sure where those pictures have all ended up. Now, I don't recognize this shot that's on the screen right now. It's
that's from House of Bernarda Alba. I'm not even sure if that was one you took.
No, it wasn't. I don't believe it was. I shot so many of them that I was with the Greystone from about 1963 to 1966, 67. At the same time, I was chief photographer of the Sheaf and the Greystone. So these all worked together because we were able to get quite a bit of Greystone into the into the other Greystone. So that was great fun working with Walter and with Emrys, particularly Emrys, because he was such a curmudgeon and he really treated you well. And then all of a sudden there'd be a change of attitude, especially if you'd screwed up in some manner. So it was a learning experience for a young photographer who had basically grew up on photography at the Greystone Theatre, experimenting with different films and different cameras, with the fact that you had to run home or run back to the lab and process the color if you were shooting Ansco or Verichrome. And if you were shooting Kodak, then you had to wait for a week or week and a half to get the film back. And then if there's anything wrong with it, you're dead in the water. So yes, I enjoyed the Greystone. It was a wonderful experience. It really molded much of the stuff I've done since in the area of media and arts and so on, and teaching photography, teaching television production. It's all based back on the 3 years of experience with Greystone. So I'm grateful for that.
It must have been an experience for you coming from the Air Force and then working in a drama department that was in a hangar building. You didn't happen to work as an Air Forceman in that hangar building at Defo before it came here, did you?
No, I didn't. I'm not quite that old, but I have liked the hangar building. I've even shot pictures in the hangar building with 6 inches of water around my ankles, with the annual spring floods and so on. Plus the hangar building was great for theater. We had problems with the control tower, not the control tower, that's the Air Force, with the control booth, and wiring was always a problem and so on. And then of course to come to grips with the actors and the actresses it was really a fun thing to actually meet these people, and some of them have remained lifelong friends. Ones that I've photographed. I had a little studio downtown at the time. We didn't have a studio on campus, so I would take them down, and I had a studio behind the barber shop on 21st Street, and we'd take the actors and the actresses down there and try to fake up something so that they would get good production pictures. Quite a few of those are still hanging in the Greystone or in the hangar building, and I imagine they're in the archives. I have about 45,000 pictures from that era that will go to the archives in time. I've just got to sort through them. So when I retire, I'll sort through them and put them in the archives. Got to get the personal ones out of the Greystone ones and out of the other university functions, the thousands that we shot. Anything else, Dwayne, that I can add?
Well, I was particularly excited about that photo from Blythe Spirit, because you must have had some interesting times with the lighting on that. I noticed there's one candle on the table. There's a woman, I think it was played by Judith Hilderman, actually, who then became a drama department professor. A woman in the doorway that had to be in silhouette. Did you have to manipulate the lights in order to get that shot, or was that just the lighting that Walter used?
No, this was I set this up, and that was a fake candle, of course, because we can't use real ones, and we were able to dim the lights down to the point where the candle didn't quite look like a candle, but it was close to it. And then we brought the lights up behind. Was that Judith Hilderman in the window?
Yes.
Yeah. We brought it up a little higher there. The problem with our film at the time, that our eyes are a million times more sensitive than the film was at the time. So what they could see in the audience, the camera just couldn't see. So we were always working with technological problems, and lighting solves some of those. But you can see if you look at Glennis Dutteridge on the left and the young fellow on the right, we've got a color temperature spread of probably 1,000 degrees, which in real life doesn't matter. Your eye compensates for it. Here it doesn't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a wonderful shot. Did you find that you had to experiment with exposure levels in the dark room as a result of all of this? I mean, there's some of that lighting is so sensitive.
Well, yes, we did. When I got the slides back, I would look at them before I showed them to anybody and throw away the ones that the actors or the actresses didn't look good in, because I hate showing them bad pictures. And then if there was something like this particular one, we had a slide copier that we could vary the exposure to a certain extent, nothing like Photoshop or Lightbox or any of those that we use nowadays. But you could control a little bit. So you could control the contrast and control the exposure. We were shooting at probably 30th of a second with a lens probably set at about f5.6. And so you get a fairly long exposure. So these people look stilted. They were frozen. Otherwise, we wouldn't have got that shot.
What did you use, Barry? Was it a Nikon, your camera? X?
Yes, I had. Well, first of all, I had a. It was called a Minolta, and then we went into the Nikon. So I've been Nikon person since probably 1964. Something like that. And that did make it a lot easier. We also had the twin lens reflex called a Mamiya Flex at the time, where you could see what you were shooting through the second lens. And so I shot a lot with that. And Hans Domash in medical photography had a Hasselblad, and I shot with that a few times. That was a beauty. We change cameras quite often. Right now, I have a basement full of derelict cameras.
Well, thank you very much for that. Now, I think we should probably stop there and open it up for questions from any of you. So we have only about 10 minutes or so, but if you have any questions, and I see one on the screen already from Angela. Hi, Angela. Nice to hear from you. A question, she says, for later, any plans to put the entire photo archives online? James, that sounds like something you might answer.
Yes, I'm working on it. Next week, many of the photos will be available online, and hopefully by the end of June, they will all be online. So keep an eye out for that.
Wow, that's a huge undertaking. I mean, how many photos do you think that will include?
The number keeps growing. It's about 5,000 at the moment. Probably about 6 in the end. Yeah.
Now, James, if you had known what a gargantuan task this was when you were offered the job, would you still have taken it?
Today, I'll answer yes.
Okay, so you're waiting for your last paycheck then. Angela says, hooray, thank you. So that's going to be an invaluable archive for people, and it will be easy for the photographers, but also the people in the photographs to just click on a photo and to determine if they are there or not. So yeah, excellent. Any other questions coming from the audience here tonight? Thank you, by the way, for showing up in great numbers. I see we have at least 34 people attending this event, which is great. Some of you from the United Kingdom, some of you from right here in Saskatoon. Trevor Lerner says this: I just wanted to thank these fine folks for capturing these magical moments that for many of us watching were precious to us. Thank you. So that comes from Trevor, but he probably speaks for just about every actor who's ever walked the boards at Greystone Theatre, because we do get calls time and again from actors wanting to see shots of themselves. I remember very well the dimmer board in the old hangar building. It had like 6 huge knobs on it. And I remember stage managers and technicians would have to kind of do a dance around one another to bring lights down on one side of the stage and lights up on the other. So I can imagine how difficult that was as a stage manager in the time.
It's now, Dwayne, it's now an anchor for a very large cruise ship.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can remember Walter, when we had some dimmer scenes on the thing, to just tell the lighting director, push it up full and keep your finger on the breaker switch. And if it burns down, that's great, because we need a new theater anyway.
Yeah. Yes, that building would never burn. I saw many people try. Donald Campbell has a question, and probably this is for David Mandeville and Barry Brown. What did you like most and least about the Hangar Building, other than its fire retardant nature?
Well, it didn't matter what you did in there, you couldn't make it any worse. So you could always make a mess and nobody worried about it. That was probably a good thing. I don't know. I guess you could say it was a character build. I didn't find any real problems with the Hangar Building, other than it would have been nice to have had a little bit better lighting system in there, and some, something a little bit more controllable and a bit brighter. But other than that, as a theater and for working in for photography, I didn't have any problems with it.
There's an old story, and I think it's true, but maybe you could help me with this. I actually included it in a book I wrote about Greystone Theatre. But the story was that when the what is now the faculty club burnt down, or at least started on fire, Emrys was at that time working in the Arts Tower across campus, and he was heard to shout hooray because he thought that Hangar Building was finally burning down. And then when he arrived on the scene and realized that it was the faculty club where his beloved scotch was kept, he was a little less happy about the fire. Anybody know if that's true or not, Barry?
I think that it is. I've heard Donna Cram relate that story a couple or 3 times. Don Cherry was also very unhappy about the fact that the faculty club had burned down and not the hangar.
Yeah. When I started out as a professor there, I remember a stage technician took a blowtorch to the beam above the stage, that big beam that was about 3 feet by 3 feet, and just held it there for 5 minutes, and it didn't even produce smoke. It seemed to be petrified wood. He said, "See, this place will never burn."
It was fur.
Okay. Okay. Jerry Etienne has a question. Did any of you photograph noon shows? These were shows that, and I'm not even sure if Emrys had a regime of noon shows or not, but certainly Tom Kerr and Frederick Adele, certainly in that era, noon shows were very popular. Not sure about Daniel Nelbach's era. But did any of you ever photograph noon shows? They tend to be student-driven productions. They were very popular back in the day, back in the 1980s, early 1980s. Everybody seemed to come across campus at noon on Fridays and watch a show in the old Arena Theatre in the Hangar Building. You never had a chance to photograph any of them, did you, David Mandeville?
No, I didn't. I think part of that could have been budgetary, because again, everything, services on campus were all paid for out of budgets, and I I've got a feeling that that probably wasn't very high on the budget list, but no, I never did a noon show.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly don't remember. I acted in a few of them in my time, and I don't remember any photographers ever showing up to those events. They tended to be either sort of variety afternoons or one-act plays. But they were very popular at a time, and alas, no longer with us. Well, we're at 8 o'clock. I'm not sure if there's any further questions from people. Again, I just want to thank you all of our presenters. Some of the best photographers in Saskatoon have been, and in Saskatchewan have been before you here tonight. Just a reminder that Unity tickets are now on sale at the Greystone Theatre website, and all of the other alumni events, including the ones coming up on Saturday and in the week after, are free of charge. And so please sign up for those and we'll see you then.
Dwayne, thank you so much for putting this thing together. It is a real blast from the past, and I appreciate it.
Mhm.
Well, it's my pleasure. I've so much enjoyed looking at your photos, all of your photos, ever since I started as a student here. So thank you as well. Okay, I guess we're off the air. Glenda McFarlane says thanks to you all. Glenda is, of course, the former wife of David Mercer, or David Saltwater Moon, forgotten his last name. And Moira Day says thanks, this was great. So we'll leave it there, guys. Again, thank you for all the work that you've done on this, and I hope you can tune in to things that are going on Saturday and afterwards.
Well, sorry for the technical issues I had at my end here. I just shut the computer down and started up again, and I think we're okay. But
yeah,
sorry for the pumping there.
No problem at all. It's really good. I guess our panelists have left, and